Over the past several years, we have seen the left advocate for and demand censorship of social media for things like hate speech. Now, with the latest emergency, the coronavirus pandemic, we're seeing them once again demand censorship. This time, they're praising China and calling for Chinese-style censorship. I'm not exaggerating. They literally are doing this. I'll show you the article. Now, of course, not literally every single person on the left, but it does tend to be a left-wing position to demand that information be removed or censored, and this is extremely dangerous. The first big breaking story: YouTube deletes conspiracy theorist David Icke's channel. David Icke is very famous. They deleted him because they said he was spreading disinformation on the coronavirus and 5G technology. And while I'm not a big fan of the guy, and to be honest, I don't know a whole lot about him, this is just another example of major channels being purged for spreading what is called the unapproved information, or what's not in line with the approved truth. Just about a week ago, YouTube deleted a video that went viral with 5 million plus views of two emergency room doctors saying, based on their data, the lockdowns are dangerous and essentially we need to reopen things. Many people on the left argued that this was poor moderation on YouTube's part. The video should never have been allowed in the first place and must be deleted, which is strange because ER doctors are experts and journalists aren't. These journalists and people on the left are not advocating for sound information. They're advocating for a top-down authority to control what we are allowed to know. In an article for The Atlantic, they wrote, "Internet speech will never go back to normal," saying China was largely correct and the US was wrong in the debate over freedom versus control over the global network. They're actually saying that China, a country that locks up dissidents and puts them in re-education camps and disappears people, was the right way to do things. Over the past several months, we have been inundated with faulty and contradictory information. Masks don't work. Don't wear masks. Yes, wear masks. Don't wear masks. Back and forth. The World Health Organization pushing false information, saying that there was no human-to-human transmission. There is no approved truth. There is no one group that gets it right. But as the left continues to demand Chinese-style censorship, and the more we see it implemented, the more at risk we will be. As of now, we are learning a leaked intelligence document from Western intelligence is claiming that the World Health Organization was pushing lies. Yet YouTube has said recently that anyone who goes against the World Health Organization's recommendations will be, well, they'll have their channel removed or they'll be in violation of community guidelines. Even though Western intelligence is saying the World Health Organization is wrong, people like me, independent content creators, and regular old people on Facebook are being censored for talking about their ideas. Now, I certainly think some of these ideas are really ridiculous, notably the 5G theory about, how it causes coronavirus, because there are many countries with coronavirus that don't have 5G technology. It doesn't seem to make sense. But the World Health Organization pushing lies from China also doesn't make sense. The best way to deal with this is, I guess, sunlight, the best disinfectant, figuratively and literally. Now, I understand there are real challenges, right? There are a lot of people who have crazy ideas saying crazy things, but you can't police speech because no one knows exactly what's going on right now. We are facing a real crisis. And as we know, based on history, looking back at major historical events and tragedies, the news immediately coming out often is wrong. And because of this, we see conspiracy theories emerge. Over time, information changes. If you're going to start banning people based on your preliminary findings, you will find that eventually there's no one left on your platform. The joke goes that the age of YouTube is over. It's now ThemTube, and only the approved channels, verified channels, and the approved truth will ever be allowed. Let's take a look first at what happened with David Icke. Again, not a big fan of the guy. Don't know a whole lot about him. But he just got purged, and it was only in the past few months we saw a bunch of other channels be stripped from the YouTube Partner Program. Dare I say, it's only a matter of time before I get the axe as well. Let's read these stories, and I want to show you quite literally, there are leftists calling for Chinese-style censorship. I want to show you the real ramifications of this. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There are several ways you can give, but the best thing you can do, share this video, and I really do mean it. YouTube is propping up what they call authoritative sources. They're actually mocking independent creators and people like myself as people in their basements who don't know what they're talking about. So they put pressure on channels like mine, so they are hurt in the YouTube algorithm. And eventually, my channel and many others like it will cease to exist. I mean, they're straight up deleting other people. Now, I certainly think I'm different from many other channels for a lot of reasons, but yeah, how long until they say only approved corporate media? You can help overcome this by sharing this video if you think I do a good job. If you just want to watch, then make sure to hit the subscribe button, the like button, and the notification bell, and maybe YouTube would actually recommend my content. I mean it. They probably still won't. But here's the big breaking news. YouTube deletes conspiracy theorist David Icke's channel. The video sharing site said the 68-year-old violated its policies on sharing information about coronavirus. The former footballer has made controversial, unproven claims about the virus on several internet platforms. The video service, which is owned by Google, told the BBC, YouTube has clear policies prohibiting any content that disputes the existence and transmission of COVID-19 as described by the World Health Organization and the NHS. How interesting. If it disputes the existence and transmission as described by the World Health Organization. I bring you now to information from a leaked Western intelligence dossier. If you follow my content, you already know about this. The file, similarly unsparing about the World Health Organization, stating that it towed the Chinese line about human-to-human transmission, despite the fact that officials in Taiwan raised concerns as early as December 31st, as did experts in Hong Kong on January 4th. As of Friday night, the World Health Organization's official Twitter account still featured a tweet from January 14th that stated, preliminary investigations conducted by the Chinese authorities would have found no clear evidence of human-to-human transmission of the novel coronavirus identified in Wuhan, China. You mean to tell me, YouTube, that if I side with Western intelligence organizations from numerous countries as to the assessment of the trustworthiness of the World Health Organization, you will remove my channel and delete my content? Welcome to the new reality that China can lie. The World Health Organization will push those lies, and YouTube agrees. That when leftists in media call for Chinese-style censorship, YouTube agrees. How long until they delete my channel? Take a look at this article from April 25th. Internet speech will never go back to normal. In the debate over freedom versus control of the global network, China was largely correct and the U.S. was wrong. They say COVID-19 has emboldened American tech platforms to emerge from their defensive crouch before the pandemic. They were targets of public outrage over life under their dominion. Today, the platforms are proudly collaborating with one another and following government guidance to censor harmful information related to the coronavirus. The World Health Organization is not the U.S. government. They receive funding from us, but no, they're not following the government guidance. They say, and they're using their prodigious data collection capacities in coordination with federal and state governments to improve contact tracing, quarantine enforcement, and other health measures. As Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg recently boasted, the world has faced pandemics before, but this time we have a new superpower, the ability to gather and share data for good. The other big thing that's been happening is that Facebook has been removing calls for protest because they violate government orders on social distancing, even though the Constitution, the law of this land, prohibits the government from infringing our right to peaceably assemble, speak, or worship. These governments that are enforcing these orders are in violation of the U.S. Constitution. They are not allowed to do these things or to tell someone they can't protest. And in fact, the Attorney General Bill Barr has said the Constitution is not suspended. So what gives Facebook the right to start purging people who are acting lawfully when Facebook then comes out and says, oh no, they're acting unlawfully? Well, it's because Facebook is a private platform. These same leftists who have argued that hate speech is the justification for censorship have now shifted the argument and said it's personal safety. It seems no matter what happens, these people will always be in favor of suspending your civil rights. I'm not talking about private platforms right now. Oh, I get it. I think people should be allowed to speak freely on social media. And we've got some interesting court cases coming up. We'll see how things play out. I'm talking about the right to peaceably assemble. right? We're looking at here at private companies like YouTube and Facebook, which of course dominate media, which control what we can say, what we can see, and now what we can say. They called it YouTube because it's the dominant platform where we share videos. Well, now because it's a private company, they'll suspend anybody. But what about the protests themselves? Who gives these governors the right to shut down the First Amendment? No one. They can't. We have a constitution. These private companies are using this as an excuse. But as I mentioned, there were 2 doctors who had their videos removed. I bring it now to the other question of expertise. The World Health Organization, who was wrong. And now we see journalists calling for this Chinese-style censorship, and then this from Vice. A video of California doctors stoking conspiracies should never have gone viral. YouTube deleted a video of Dr. Erickson and Masihi after getting torched by the media, which is only making things worse. Who's the expert on medical health? A doctor or the media? Why would YouTube take the advice of the media and not 2 emergency room doctors who actually have degrees and are licensed to practice medicine? Perhaps it's because of an ideological reason and also a marketing reason. YouTube bends the knee to the media because they don't want to lose advertisers. So when the media comes out and says, we need more Chinese-style censorship, YouTube goes, you got it, buddy. Whatever you say so you don't insult me. And then we'll put you on the front page and prop you up. So let me show you something. Let me ask you a question. Internet speech will never go back to normal. China was largely correct. Is that what you think, Jack Goldsmith and Andrew Keenwoods? Let me show you what China was doing. From CNN. May 1st, Chinese journalist jailed for 15 years for vilifying the Communist Party and government. Is that what you think they got right? Vice wrote a story, interestingly enough, about a journalist who was talking about what was really happening with the coronavirus, who was disappeared for about a month and then came back singing the praises of the government, bent the knee, lying, and causing us harm. It's the craziest thing to me. People are dying right now. And these journalists are actually arguing for disinformation. They're arguing in favor of known liars. Perhaps it's because what they really want is authoritarianism. Now listen, YouTube has been purging these channels. And when I made the joke about YouTube being now ThemTube, I know it's a joke, but it's actually true. I mean, there will come a time when my channel will be completely purged. YouTube is not trying to be a platform for anyone to speak up. I mean, look at it this way. When was the last time you saw a viral video from YouTube? This is a point I saw on Twitter. I can't remember who said it, so forgive me for not giving you credit. But they mentioned videos are going viral on TikTok, a Chinese platform. In fact, TikTok didn't want to censor people who were engaging in hate speech. They wanted to censor the people who are the targets of it because they wanted to maintain more users. It's a complete inversion of what's actually happening here in the US. But now we see this story from Newsbusters. YouTube top official mocks content creators in their basement. That's right. They say that in an interview, let me read it for you. Every YouTube employee should get down on their knees and thank the video creators, mostly working from home, for making that site an enormous success. Over the years, instead, the attitude emanating from YouTube recently has been one of denigration and mockery of those same creators in favor of promoting mainstream media channels, despite the fact that YouTube has grown primarily because viewers wanted an alternative to the mainstream media output. The latest example of a YouTube official sneering the very creators who brought them to the table of success comes in the form of YouTube Chief Product Officer Neil Mohan mocking the people who made his big salary possible as espousing their opinions in their basement. Now, I'm not gonna pretend like this guy is trying to insult people directly. He's trying to make a point about what he deems to be credible and what is not credible. And so he says people making things in their basement are not authoritative, therefore they will prop up who everyone knows and can respect. Yet CNN recently ran a fake segment where Chris Cuomo pretended to emerge from quarantine. It's just not true. According to his story, he was in his own backyard, but no, he admitted it. He got into a confrontation with some guy riding his bike 30 minutes from his house. That's who the authoritative source is? I'm sorry, that's a lie. Why would YouTube then prop them up? because YouTube is scared of the media power. Over the past several years, we have seen an emergence of several adpocalypses, as they're called. For those that aren't familiar, this was when mainstream media outlets smeared YouTube, causing major advertisers, like Coke and Pepsi. I don't know if them specifically, but just an example. It caused major advertisers to pull out, and YouTube was at risk of losing a ton of money. YouTube then decided they will just prop up the media because they can make money off that too. While YouTube does compete with CNN, they figured, why? Well, if you can't beat them, join them. Put CNN on the front page. We get the views regardless, and then CNN makes us look good, and we can sell ads for more money. Some channels get benefits. My channel certainly has more privilege and more benefits because I tend to be a milquetoast, kind of individual. I'm not coming out with crazy conspiracy theories or anything like that. So I actually get a lot of benefits, but I am an advocate for free speech. And I am deeply concerned that when you start censoring smaller channels, you eventually hide the truth and you end up pushing Chinese communist propaganda for ideological reasons. Take a look at this story from Reason, how China corrupted the World Health Organization's response to COVID-19. We also see that David Icke, being banned from YouTube, was also banned from Facebook. I bring this up just to say that it actually is more than just YouTube. Over at The Hill, we have Jonathan Turley, who is a constitutional scholar, writing The Dangerous Liberal Ideas for Censorship in the United States. This one I highlight specifically to show you it's not conservatives that are calling for overt censorship. In fact, conservatives are calling for a relaxing of speech, and they have. It was a year ago. I went on the Joe Rogan podcast with Jack Dorsey and Vijaya Gadde talking about how they were wrong to censor ideas. Yet for some reason, the left consistently finds an excuse to try and suppress information. I don't know why. It's not about hate speech. It's not about COVID. I think it's more about power. They want to be able to control the conversation so they can win elections and maintain power and shape things the way they want. Amid this pandemic, we heard from Rep. Clyburn telling Nancy Pelosi, the Democrat, that now is our chance to shape things in our vision. That seems to be the goal. Does it mean every single person on the left? No, it just means enough of them are willing to enact they're willing to act maliciously to get what they want. In the article from Jonathan Turley, he brings up the doctors that were removed. Let me just read a little bit right here. He says, YouTube let me back up. Many of us in the free speech community have warned of the growing insatiable appetite for censoring in the West. We have been losing the fight, and free speech opportunities are now capitalizing on free speech opponents are now capitalizing on the opportunity presented by the pandemic. Representative Adam Schiff sent a message to the heads of Google, Twitter, and YouTube demanding censorship of anything deemed misinformation and false information. YouTube did just that by removing 2 videos of California doctors who called for the easing of state lockdown orders. The doctors argue that the coronavirus is not as dangerous as suggested and that some deaths associated with the disease are actually not accurate. There is certainly ample reason to contest their views, but instead, YouTube banned the videos to keep others from reaching their own conclusions. Facebook will not only remove posts it considers misinformation about the coronavirus, but will issue warnings to those who like such postings. Facebook said that it wants to protect people from dangerous remedies and false data. Ironically, the World Health Organization praised Sweden for its rejection of the very restrictions criticized by the 2 doctors. The group declared that Sweden is a model country despite its rejection of lockdown measures being protested in the United States. It doesn't seem to make sense. Nothing seems to make sense. It just seems to be whatever pushes their ideology. Sweden loves the leftist ideology, so everything they do is good. Donald Trump is the bad man, so everything he does is bad. Even though he called for travel restrictions, he was wrong. Then they later agreed and said he didn't go far enough. There is no right way to approach this. Do not let them take your rights. Unfortunately, it's going to keep happening and will only get worse. In September of last year, more than 17,000 YouTube channels removed since new hateful content policy implemented. Now they're implementing misinformation policies, and they're starting to purge more and more channels for pushing misinformation. Yes, it will only be a matter of time until my channel is completely removed because I've been calling Democrats liars. And I mean it. The media and the Democrats are in alignment. Adam Schiff banned the misinformation, he says. Yet what? They trust the World Health Organization, who has been lying? Even mainstream outlets and Western intelligence have been calling them out. But I want to show you a couple things as I wrap this up on the back end. We have this story from Vox. Minutes after pledging not to lie, the new White House press secretary lied a whole bunch. Kayleigh McEnany's first press briefing got off to a promising start. It lasted all of 15 minutes, by Aaron Rupar of Vox. I'm highlighting this to show you the partisan nature of what truth and misinformation really is. Because I will tell you this, in fact, Aaron Rupar of Vox is lying in his story. It's funny. He's lying about the press secretary lying. What he's really doing is giving you his opinion and trying to pass it off as fact. This is why it's so dangerous to remove information and censor people, because it will come back to haunt you when you do this. But these people like the idea of a government authority controlling what they're allowed to think, so I guess they'll get what they want. Kayleigh McEnany, sorry, that's her name, McEnany, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, said she wouldn't lie. Well, of course, he then lies by tweeting this. Quote, the salacious, awful, and verifiably false allegations that were made against Justice Kavanaugh. McEnany just lied, breaking the promise she made not to just minutes ago. The allegations against Kavanaugh were not verifiably false. Aaron is lying. They were verifiably false. In fact, several of the allegations were recanted. McEnany didn't say literally every allegation. She said the salacious, awful, and verifiably false allegations that were made. She could be specifically referring to a few that were verifiably false and were later determined to have been false. The accusers recanted. One guy claimed Kavanaugh was on his boat, later came out and said, never met the guy. It wasn't true. Aaron Rupar is falsely framing this to lie in order to claim she's lying. Now, I'm not going to say that Vox should be taken down. He should be allowed to say these things, even if he's lying. If it's slander and defamation, you could come after him with a lawsuit. But it's his opinion. The only problem, Vox did not label the story as opinion. Now, here's where we go from here. Because of these verifiably false stories, like this opinion piece from Aaron Rupar, because people are having their videos deleted, and because we're being told to trust the World Health Organization, when the media said masks don't work, then masks do work, then masks don't work, but they do work for medical professionals. Now you need to go buy a mask. Now you have to wear a mask by state mandate. No one knows what to think when the media keeps doing this. So you know what? There's no way for me to actually figure out what I'm supposed to do. YouTube says, you got to make sure you're not spreading this information. Well, the information has changed so much. I have no idea what information is legit and what isn't. So eventually they'll just delete me. I'm sure if you go back to one of my past videos where I said, hey, look, masks aren't as effective. You shouldn't use them. They're going to say Tim was lying and spreading misinformation, even though that's the information they told me to say. You see the game they're playing? They're putting me in a position where no matter what I do, I will eventually get deleted unless I go back and delete every other video. And I'll tell you the results of this. An interesting Twitter thread from journalist Jake Hanrahan I found fascinating. He said, something I'm noticing about the 5G coronavirus conspiracy theories is that quite a few of my mates from back home in the Midlands are taking them seriously. These are not stupid people. Our schools were awful and were technically poorly educated, but they're not stupid. The problem I'm seeing is that they don't trust traditional media or find it so boring they don't engage in it. They don't trust it because it rarely represents them. And when it does, it paints a fairy tale image of what the working class is, or it demonizes them when that elitist fairy tale is scuppered by the reality. So they're either seeing a pathetic, Loach-esque homage to their way of life, or are being called stupid and bigoted. There's rarely any in between. They turn to alternative media when they're not busy working for low wages, which is sadly often full of S and takes any guest statement at face value. Independent media is also very much indulging in alarmist attention baiting, as traditional media does. I don't know what the answer is at all, but the reasons for people turning to conspiracy BS are not all because they're so stupid. In fact, that attitude just reinforces their faith in conspiracy outlets. No one wants to be laughed at. Despite all the showboating to the contrary, the media has a huge snobbery issue. Things like this really expose it. My point is, don't immediately write someone off as a bigot or a moron because they're currently indulging in moronic conspiracy theories. There's sadly a deep-rooted reason for this. Try to engage with them if they're your friend. I've found pointing out that it's insane to think every country on earth with 5G, many of them enemies to each other, would keep this secret. Obviously, one country would break ranks and use it to hurt the others. This has helped a bit. I know it's really effing dumb to believe 5G conspiracy theories, but not everyone who's doing so does it from a place of malice or total stupidity. The ultimate point, and the best point he makes in my opinion, is that as YouTube starts purging channels that people trust, whether they're right or wrong, and propping up confirmed false information from the World Health Organization, you will lose trust in every institution, and that will make things worse. YouTube didn't have it wasn't the worst idea. What YouTube initially did. When you would make a video about a controversial theory or something, they would put a link to some Wikipedia or article underneath you. Now, that was propping up mainstream media. But hey, the best disinfectant is sunlight, right? So I don't completely oppose that. I think it's a silly idea, fine, whatever. But if you want to fight bad information with more information, so be it. I always tell people not to just watch my channel, watch other channels as well. But YouTube has taken it one step further. In response to calls from the left and the media for Chinese-style censorship, they are obliging and just taking down anyone they deem to run contrary to the official, confusing, and contradictory statements of the World Health Organization. Notably, 2 doctors who had their channels removed. Now, I don't know if those doctors are right or wrong. All I know is they're doctors and I'm not. But of course, it doesn't matter, because media professionals apparently are the experts and YouTube will bend the knee. So I'll just start counting down until my channel gets deleted. But until then, stick around if you want more content. I'll have more videos coming up at youtube.com/TimCastNews at 6 p.m. Thanks for hanging out and listening to this rant, and I will see you all in the next segment.